Are you guys looking to put a radiator in your 2007 or 2018 Jeep JKU? Well, this is the video you need to watch because I'm going to show you how to put this radiator in even if you have no experience working on cars. So let's get to it and let's save some money. Before you get started on this radiator is let the vehicle sit a little while. So when you start working on this thing, the coolant is not hot. So the first thing we need to do is get this coolant drained. So let's get to it. If you're wondering, how do I drain this radiator? Well, the easiest thing to do here is there's a drain port on the passenger side on this radiator, very bottom. There's a little valve right here that you turn, and there's a drain port here. It will drain the coolant completely out of that. Well, I had a little bit of an issue trying to do mine. This ended up breaking, and I couldn't get any coolant to drain out.
So what I'm going to go ahead and do is clamp off the radiator hoses and go ahead and get a couple things out of the way so I can drain the coolant out of the lower radiator hose. Now we're going to loosen the clamp on the throttle body side of the intake tube. Don't forget to disconnect the idle air control sensor from the intake tube, and then unhook the vacuum hose from the air box. Grab a hold of the air box, give it a little wiggle with an upward pressure, and it'll pop right out of there. Since we're getting ready to drain the coolant, don't forget to kick your drain pan underneath the Jeep. Now I'm going to disconnect the lower radiator hose so I can drain the coolant out of the system, unhook the overflow tube from the radiator, remove the upper radiator hose, and then go ahead and take out the overflow tank. Well, we're finally getting somewhere. Now we have to take the grill off the Jeep. So there's 6 push pins on the top of the grill that you have to remove before you can take this grill off. And unfortunately, there is a better tool to take these push pins out, but I ended up losing that in a vehicle that I worked on a little while back ago and just never found the tool. The last step before removing the grill is disconnecting the marker lights. To remove the grill, you just get a firm grip on it on each side and just kind of work it to try to pop it out. Sometimes the grill insert clips, you have some problems with it, so you might need to use a screwdriver to help you pop those clips out. Next, there's a cover on top of the radiator that has 4 push pins in it. You need to remove all 4 of those push pins and then go ahead and remove the cover.
Just in case you guys want to know what parts and specialty tools I'm using in this video, I'm going to link them in the description. But if you guys use my links, I greatly appreciate it. All that goes back to helping out the channel. Let's get on with the video. Now we got to this point with all this stuff off, a lot of things disconnected, almost ready to get this radiator out of here. There's still some small things we need to do. So the next thing we need to do is get this condenser disconnected from the radiator, and there's 4 bolts holding it on there. A little bit of a pain to get to, so normally I just use like a ratcheting wrench to get to them, but it's these 4 bolts. This one up here, just in the 4 corners. That one there, you can see that one down there, and then right there. So what you need to do is disconnect that. You're going to leave the condenser sit where it's at when you get in there, but you just got to get it unbolted from the radiator so you can get this radiator pulled out of here. So don't forget to disconnect those because you don't want to mess any of these lines up or anything else.
Now we're going to unplug the radiator fan. I had a little bit of issues trying to unplug it, so I just used my flashlight to help me get it unplugged. Don't forget to disconnect the harness from the radiator. There's a little push pin holding the harness onto the radiator. Make sure you get that off there so you're not ripping the harness out when you're taking the radiator out.
Alright, so the next thing you need to do, there's a bolt that holds the transmission line bracket on the radiator. So to get to that bolt, I normally just kind of bend this horn out of the way like that. Then I can get my ratchet down there to get that 10 millimeter out of there.
There's only 2 bolts holding in the radiator, so I'm going to go ahead and get those out now. And before I forget, there's a plastic cover underneath the radiator that has a handful of push pins in it. Make sure you get all those push pins out of there before you take the radiator out.
Okay, don't do what I did. Before you pull the radiator out, I forgot about these little covers on the side. So these right here, this, oh no, it just fell to the ground. This one over here, and then there's also a little plastic piece here that has a push pin in it. See it there? That's on both sides, right there. Oh. Yep, see that push pin? Okay, so when I was trying to pull the radiator up, those little plastic covers were still attached to the radiator, and I couldn't get the radiator to come up out of there. So before you pull your radiator up, look on both sides there. You'll see them. They're little plastic covers. They're little push pins all over the place. Pop those out, get them out of the way before you try to pull that radiator up, where you're going to run into the same problem I had and couldn't get it to come out. So before you pull it, get those little plastic covers off of there, and then you can get the radiator out. All right, so we got the radiator out of the Jeep. The next step to do is to transfer the cooling fan over to the new radiator. So we're going to go ahead and get that one off there and get this one over onto the new one. All right, now that we got the radiator out, you pretty much have the idea on how this thing needs to go back in there. So I'm just going to throw this in. I'm just going to speed this process up, get this radiator in. But the things you do want to watch are when you put in these radiators in, you're not hitting the condenser or the radiator or messing anything up with those. You definitely don't want to cause yourself to spend any more money than what you have to. So definitely just be careful when you're putting that stuff in there. But once we get this in, I'll go ahead and show you how I get coolant in the system and make sure there's no air in the system. So let's get this radiator in, and then we'll get to the next step.
Now that the Jeep is all put back together, it's time to get coolant in the vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and install the no spill funnel on the Jeep. With my background being a technician for the last 15 years, I'm a huge fan of using factory fluids. So on this, we're going to go ahead and use the factory coolant, and it's a full concentrate, so we have to mix a 50-50 mix. So half a jug of the coolant and then half the other jug I'm going to use distilled water. I'm going to start adding coolant to the funnel now. I do not have the vehicle running at this time. I'm going to keep adding coolant to the funnel until the fluid no longer drops in the funnel. Also, don't forget to top off your coolant overflow. The fluid is no longer dropping in the funnel, so now it's time to open up the door and get the vehicle started. Once the vehicle started, I turn the heater on full blast to make sure I get all the air pockets out of everything. While the vehicle is running, I'll get the vehicle up to 1500 to 2000 RPMs just to try to work all the air pockets out of the system. Once you no longer see any bubbles in the funnel and the coolant is no longer dropping in the funnel, it is now time to go out and test drive your vehicle. While you're test driving your vehicle, make sure the heater is still on full blast and you run the vehicle a little harder than what you normally would just to make sure you're working all the air out of the system. And then when you get back, make sure you double check your coolant and top off any coolant that needs to be topped off. And you're good to go. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.